Brian, obviously not a great day as far as weather is concerned. Do you think they're going to be able to get this one in this afternoon?
Well, we're tentatively scheduled for 1:30 first pitch. We'll see if the weather cooperates on that, but we'll certainly fight to get it in. We'd like to.
Still about 2.5 weeks of camp left. What are your impressions so far?
Well, we certainly have decisions to make. Who's that fifth starter? Last night was a tough one for CC, so he's got one or two more to kind of show, and if Nova continues to fight, we'll have a decision to make there. Bullpen, too, is, there's a number of spots up for grabs, and every time we see, more reps, that's why we want to get these games in. It's going to kind of, we want to gravitate to the obvious, and hopefully the obvious steps up and takes it, and it'll make the decision-making easier.
When you look at that fifth starter spot in CC Sabathia, which you had mentioned, what do you kind of judge him on? Do you look at the past? Do you look at his current results? What goes into that decision?
Well, obviously, Nova, last year came back from Tommy John, so we didn't really have a good shot at seeing what, he really can be again. So this spring's going to be a good indicator in Nova's case, and then in CC's case, he had a full season last year, and then obviously this spring, and so it's a pure competition, and whoever's going to be the best and wins it, that's they're going to declare them themselves, and we'll gravitate to that. We're true to our word. It's going to be whoever's going to give us the best chance to win every 5 days, and I just hope that in the end, when the dust settles, that the decision's not made for us by somebody getting hurt, out of the 6 guys. And, that very well could happen at some point, but we're hoping that's not the case.
When I talked to you earlier this spring, you had said the back end of that bullpen obviously set, but there are some roles there in the middle that have yet to be defined. Are you getting any closer to any decisions there? Yeah,
we had another meeting today about kind of who's, in the mix, and it's, so I would say, it's still. It's getting late, but it's still early enough where we've got some time, especially with the amount of reps these guys are going to get and show. So some guys that currently are behind the 8 ball have a chance to close the gap with stringing together about 3 or 4 good performances, and some other guys that seem to be pretty consistent. If they can hold on, then they'll win the job. I know it's vague and stuff, but there's some guys I think right now pretty much have a leg up, and but there's some guys that that are going to try to close the gap with putting some early bad performance behind them. So like Pazos, the last 2 outings have been much better than his earlier ones, as an example. And there's other guys like Sesta or Mitchell. They've had a good camp this far. Shreve has been fantastic the whole way. So he's pretty much solidifying himself in that bullpen for us. So. Yeah, and then the other guys, whether it's a Goody, a Rumbelow, amongst others, is just Yates has done nice. So, we're going to pick 3 of those guys because we're assuming the 6th starter is going to wind up in the pen.
With Shreve, he had such a good first half of the season. It was really just the month of September where he struggled. Do you think it was all fatigue with him, and was there any concern that he wouldn't be able to bounce back coming into this spring?
Game of baseball, you never know. The only thing we were wondering is if there's any health issue, and he assured us there wasn't. Some maybe would believe that he just hit a wall in the end, and but the way he's had his camp, so far, it gives us encouragement that we're going to get the guy that we had for, the first 4 to 5 months we had last year, which would be pretty important piece for our bullpen.
You mentioned Brian Mitchell. When you look at him, do you view him as a starter long term, or a guy that you could eventually see being more of the swing guy or the bullpen guy, long man?
Well, I mean, he's got the tools to be a starter. But ultimately, where he currently sits on this squad is competition for the bullpen. If we had our druthers and everything was perfect, we'd have Sessa, we'd have Mitchell all go into the rotation at AAA and continue to build and finish off. But if the population isn't strong enough where those guys turn out to be better than some of the reliever choices, then you might see those guys in the pen. So we just have to wait and see.
There are also some battles as far as position players are concerned. Coming into camp, you had said Starlin Castro might play a little bit of third base. That experiment seems to be over. What have you thought of Rob Refsnyder there?
Well, I'm glad yesterday he got a lot of reps in. It was great that anywhere from 7 to 10 ground balls went his way, so he got a lot of work, and he's been better than I expected, to be honest. He'd never been over that side of the infield. His reactions are really good. His arm's good. I just think the lateral stuff. It's stuff he needs to still work on, especially balls to his left, and maybe a little bit to his right. But I've been surprised by how he's done. Now, he's not going to be, as good a defender as some of these other guys in competition, Cosma or Torres, but he's a better bat. So those are the type of decision-making we're going to have as we wrestle with it, whether, you want the offensive, guy with the defensive limitations or the defensive guy with the offensive limitations. It just depends on how the rest of the roster shakes out.
Do you feel like you've seen enough of him defensively to make a decision on him and what he can do in the field?
I've seen enough to be, encouraged that that's a position that even if, say he doesn't, cross the finish line, for instance, that we'll probably have to talk about getting a lot of opportunities down there at third because, I do see, the utility value that he can bring this club in the future, being able to play some second, play some third, play, obviously some outfield. So maybe he can be a dynamic utility role player down the line. It's tough to make calls on guys that, are, have so limited action at a new position. But to his credit, he's stepped up. He has no fear, and he's shown some really nice plays under his belt for someone that's never been on that side of the field before.
There are two guys battling for that backup catcher spot as well, in Gary Sanchez, also Austin Romine. Romine has been in that position so far. What have you seen from the both of them, and are you leaning one way or another as far as that position is concerned?
I'll tell you, Romine's done a nice job. He came into camp last year in competition. It was a pure competition with him and John Ryan Murphy, and neither really did well last spring. And we wound up going with Murph, and Romine had kind of an up-and-down season at AAA last year. One good, strong month of offense, and then a horrific month of offense, back and forth. But I'm guessing he's learned a lot from, the last spring. I don't know if he pressed or not, trying to make the club. Where this spring, he's bottom line, he's performing, and he's definitely taken a run at that backup title. So I think as you entered the spring. As we entered the spring, as I entered the spring, it was Gary Sanchez's spot in theory to potentially lose, where Romine, if this is a horse race, is down the stretch they can, and Romine, is he's running a hell of a race. So, we have some decisions to make, but they're good decisions because, if Romine is this type of player for us and can be, it's nice to know you have, a broader foundation at the catching position that we can pull from. So, we'll see how it shakes out. We got another 12 games after maybe this weekend to go, and we'll make a call here at some point. But Romine's had a good camp.
With Gary Sanchez, the thought had always been that he can hit, but defensively, at least last year, you guys have said you weren't sure that he was quite there yet, but made some strides last season defensively. Does he look like a different player behind the plate? Well,
I saw him a lot last year, so I'd say he's significantly improved, from 2 years ago. In his case, he's catching some new guys also. I think he's getting to learn the pitching staff, and he's also, fighting and pressing. This is, I think, his first real opportunity to make a big league club. I think that might be playing a little bit in, the results. So, but he's significantly improved. This is a guy, he's going to be, without a doubt, an everyday catcher in the big leagues as we move forward, and he's young. He's, I think, 23 off the top of my head, and so, real high ceiling. So regardless of what happens, at the end of this camp, we're excited about his future. But at the end of the day, we're going to take who's going to help us the best, and we did just in the fifth starter spot. We said, it's an open competition, and may the best man win, and our words are going to have meaning on that, so both in the rotation as well as the backup catcher side.
One of the big question marks last year was what was Alex Rodriguez going to be? What was Mark Teixeira going to be? Are those guys question marks at all for you anymore?
No, I don't have to worry as those guys. The only thing you worry about in those situations now is just maintaining health. I thought Tex would be fine last year. I predicted in the wintertime he'd bounce back to being the old Tex, and he did. Because there was no reason for him never to be what he's always been. And in Alex's case, there was always that question mark, what you're going to get at that age with that type of downtime. So, now with the dust settling, I think we can expect positive performance from both positions as we move forward, and we go from there.
What are the final two-plus weeks for you like in spring training as you get towards opening day?
A lot of meetings with the staff, a lot of discussions about ways to go, how to, engaging other clubs about, potential cast-offs or available players on their end to make sure you measure them against what you already have here in camp. A lot of extra meetings about that 25th spot, more so than people can ever imagine. It's always, you spend so much time, discussing who's the final piece to a puzzle that's never finished. But, that's what spring training's about. A lot of time on your hands, so I guess you make use of it. So whatever we wind up picking, it certainly won't be a finished product, trust me.
Well, I know you're a busy man. We'll let you go. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks. Just saw the umpires walking down, so I better go in and find out what the latest updates are.